The horizon wasn't empty, and in that moment, everything Admiral Shibasaki believed about war began to collapse. November 20th, 1943. Dawn spread slowly over Tarawa Atoll, painting the Pacific sky in deep red, like a wound opening across the horizon. The humid air hangs heavy over the island. Steam rises from the jungle, drifting above a maze of concrete bunkers, steel gun positions and hidden trenches. What was once a quiet coral island has been transformed into something else entirely, a fortress built for destruction. 50 feet underground, inside a reinforced command bunker, Rear Admiral Keiji Shibasaki stands in silence. The space smells of oil, damp concrete and tension. Around him, officers move carefully, speaking in low voices, radios crackling with distant reports. Shibasaki leans forward, looking through a German-made periscope. At first, the ocean appears calm. Empty. He adjusts the lens. Something feels wrong. At 50 years old, Shibasaki is not a man easily shaken. He has spent 2 years preparing this island. Every bunker, every gun, every firing angle has been calculated. He has studied American tactics in detail. He believes he understands how they fight. And based on everything he knows, this should be simple. The Americans, he had told his officers before, could not take Tarawa with 1 million men in 100 years. It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. But now, as he stares at the horizon, that certainty begins to crack. Small shapes appear in the distance. Dots. Then more. Ships. Not scattered. Not disorganized. Perfectly aligned. Behind him, one of the officers speaks into a radio, his voice tightening. Reports begin coming in from observation posts around the atoll. Enemy fleet sighted, multiple formations. Another voice cuts in. Sir, it extends beyond visual range. The room grows quieter. Shibasaki doesn't turn around. He keeps watching. As the morning light strengthens, the silhouettes become clearer. Warships. Carriers. Transports. Hundreds of them. The number hits the room like a shock. More than 500 vessels. 15 aircraft carriers. This isn't an invasion force. It's something far larger. Officers gather around the radios, their faces losing color as new reports confirm the same thing from every angle. The fleet isn't just large, it's organized in a way none of them have seen before. Shibasaki finally steps back from the periscope. This is incorrect, he says quietly. Everything he prepared for depended on one assumption, that the Americans would attack in a familiar way, rushed, uneven, vulnerable during landing. That's when his defenses would destroy them. His entire strategy was built on timing. Wait until the enemy crowds the beaches. Then strike with everything at once. But out there, nothing is crowding. The ships are spacing themselves with precision, moving like parts of a single machine. He returns to the periscope. Now he sees it clearly. The formations are deliberate. Distances between ships are exact. Movements are synchronized. There's no confusion. No hesitation. Then it begins. A low sound, almost too faint to notice at first. A distant rumble. It builds quickly. The ground beneath the bunker starts to vibrate. Dust falls from the ceiling. And then, flashes. Across the ocean, bright bursts of light erupt from the fleet. One after another. Not all at once. Not randomly. In sequence. Like a wave. Shibasaki's breath slows. Because this is not normal bombardment. Each ship fires in turn, creating a rolling line of explosions that moves steadily across the island. The shells land with terrifying accuracy, walking across defensive positions in a pattern that feels calculated, controlled. This isn't chaos. It's design. Inside the bunker, radios come alive with urgent voices. Direct hits on forward bunkers. Artillery positions taking fire. Enemy adjusting range. Shibasaki grips the periscope handles tightly. Adjusting? That word shouldn't apply here. Naval bombardment, as he understands it, is pre-planned. Fixed. Limited once it begins. But what he's seeing suggests something else. Something far more dangerous. He remembers his early years studying warfare. Gallipoli. A disaster of poor coordination. Months of failure because forces couldn't work together effectively. That was the pattern of Western armies. Slow, rigid, disconnected. Even earlier in this war, American operations showed the same weakness. Units fighting separate battles. Communication delays. Mistiming. That's what he prepared for. But this is different. An officer approaches him carefully. Admiral, reports from Guadalcanal. Our analysts may have underestimated American coordination. Shibasaki says nothing. He had dismissed those earlier reports, assumed they were excuses from defeated commanders. Now, watching the ocean burn with controlled firepower, he feels something unfamiliar. Doubt. Through the periscope, he sees aircraft rising from carriers in smooth, continuous waves. Fighters take off, circle, and head toward the island, not randomly but in patterns, as if each pilot already knows exactly where to go. Ships continue firing, but now the impacts are shifting, adjusting, tightening. Spotter aircraft, someone says behind him. They're directing the fire. Shibasaki turns slightly. Real-time correction? He asks. Yes, Admiral. That should not be possible at this scale. And yet it's happening. He looks again. The bombardment is no longer just powerful, it's precise. Each explosion seems to serve a purpose. Each movement connects to another. For the first time, Shibasaki begins to understand. This is not just an attack. It is a system. And systems don't break the way armies do. Outside, the roar continues to grow. And inside the bunker, a quiet realization begins to spread. They are not facing the enemy they prepared for. They are facing something entirely new. The bombardment didn't just destroy defenses, it exposed a terrifying truth. Every move the Americans made was connected. The shaking inside the bunker grows more violent. Dust drifts through the air with every impact. The sound outside is no longer a distant roar, it's constant, overwhelming, like the island itself is being torn apart piece by piece. Shibasaki forces himself to stay focused. Panic is spreading through the radio channels, but he cannot afford it. Status of coastal guns? He asks. Pause. Multiple positions destroyed, Admiral, others unable to fire accurately. Visibility is compromised. Smoke. That's when he notices it. Through the periscope, thick white smoke begins to spread across sections of the island. But it's not random. It appears exactly where American landing craft are approaching. They're using smoke screens, an officer says. Shibasaki narrows his eyes. Smoke has always been used in battle, but this is different. It isn't just cover. It's timed perfectly with movement. As the smoke thickens, naval gunfire shifts away from those zones, and moments later landing craft move forward. Every action is connected to another. Every step is planned. Then something even more disturbing happens. The bombardment suddenly stops. No warning. No gradual fade. Just silence. For a brief moment the island feels frozen. Shibasaki doesn't move. His instincts tell him this silence is not relief. It's preparation. Through the periscope he sees them clearly now, rows of landing craft forming in the lagoon. Perfect lines. Equal spacing. Waiting. Why have they stopped firing? One officer whispers. No one answers. Because the answer is already unfolding. The moment stretches, then breaks. Naval guns fire again, but not at the same targets. The barrage shifts inland. And at that exact second, the landing craft surge forward. Shibasaki's grip tightens. Timing. Perfect timing. The defensive fire that should have cut them down is gone, forced to reposition under the new bombardment. And in that narrow window the Americans move. Fast. Controlled. Disciplined. Open fire. An officer shouts into a radio. But the response is fragmented. Some units fire too early. Others too late. Communication delays ripple across the defense lines. For the first time since the attack began, something feels familiar. Confusion. But it isn't coming from the Americans. It's coming from his own side. Through the periscope, Shibasaki watches Marines reach the reef. Some struggle through the water, but even that movement is organized. Covering fire continues from ships offshore. Aircraft sweep overhead, targeting known positions. They're coordinating air and naval support with the landing, the artillery commander says, disbelief in his voice. That's not possible at this level, another officer mutters. But it is. And it's happening in real time. Radio operators begin intercepting fragments of American communication. Short, precise, constant. Units reporting positions. Requesting fire support. Receiving immediate responses. Admiral, the communications officer says, his voice strained, they're coordinating at small unit levels, possibly even squads. Shibasaki turns sharply. Squads? Yes, Admiral. Individual units are communicating directly with ships and aircraft. That realization hits harder than any explosion. Because if that's true, then the Americans are not just coordinating large movements. They are integrating every level of the battlefield. From the highest command, down to the smallest group of soldiers. Shibasaki looks back through the periscope. What he sees confirms it. A group of Marines advances toward a damaged bunker. Before they reach it, an aircraft dives low and strikes the position with precision. Seconds later, naval gunfire lands just beyond it, cutting off any reinforcement. The Marines move forward safely. Not by chance. By design. Every threat is removed just before it becomes dangerous. Every movement is supported before it begins. This isn't reaction. It's anticipation. Inside the bunker, the mood shifts from tension to something deeper. Unease. Forward observers report heavy losses. An intelligence officer says quietly. Many units cannot hold their positions under sustained fire. Reinforce them, Shibasaki orders. But even as he speaks, he knows the problem. Reinforcements require movement. Movement requires coordination. And coordination is breaking down. Each Japanese unit is fighting its own battle, cut off by smoke, noise, and destruction. Meanwhile, the Americans are fighting one battle. Together. The difference becomes more visible with every passing minute. When Japanese defenders concentrate fire on one landing zone, American aircraft immediately strike those positions. When artillery opens up, counterfire silences it quickly. Every action is met with a faster, more precise response. It feels like the enemy already knows what will happen before it does. Admiral, the communications officer says again, more urgently this time. We're receiving additional intelligence from other islands. Shibasaki doesn't look away from the periscope. Report. Previous engagements indicate similar patterns. American coordination exceeded expectations. Commanders described it as overwhelming. Shibasaki closes his eyes for a brief second. So it wasn't an exaggeration. It was a warning. And they ignored it. Another explosion shakes the bunker, closer this time. The lights flicker. Through the periscope, the beach is no longer a defensive line. It's a controlled battlefield. American forces continue to land, not in chaos but in sequence. Units move past each other without hesitation. Supplies begin arriving almost immediately. How are they bringing in supplies this quickly? An officer asks. No one answers. But Shibasaki sees it. Small boats moving between larger ships. Routes already established. Timing already planned. Even logistics are part of the system. A wounded Marine is carried back toward the shore. Within moments he is transferred to a boat and taken away. Medical evacuation, during an active assault. Efficient, organized, uninterrupted. That detail unsettles Shibasaki more than anything else, because it proves something critical. The system doesn't just attack. It sustains itself. Losses don't slow it down. Confusion doesn't break it. It adapts, constantly. Admiral, casualty reports from forward bunkers are increasing rapidly, the intelligence officer says. Some units are reporting near total losses. Shibasaki doesn't respond immediately. He watches as another wave of Marines advances under covering fire. Behind them, engineers begin clearing obstacles, while combat is still ongoing. Even that is coordinated. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is delayed. Everything happens at the exact moment it's needed. For the first time since the battle began, Shibasaki feels something deeper than concern. Fear. Not of defeat, but of what this means. Because if an enemy can operate like this, then traditional defense may no longer work. Bunkers, crossfire zones, pre-planned artillery, all designed for a different kind of war. A slower war. A less connected war. He grips the periscope tighter. Outside, the system keeps moving forward. Step by step. Relentless. And inside the bunker, one thought becomes impossible to ignore. This battle is not slipping out of control. It was never under control to begin with. By the second day, it wasn't just the defenses that were breaking. It was belief itself. The bunker feels smaller now. The air is thicker, harder to breathe. Every explosion above sends a dull shock through the concrete walls. The lights flicker more often. Radios crackle non-stop, overlapping voices turning into a constant stream of urgency and confusion. Shibasaki stands where he has been for hours, one hand resting on the periscope, the other clenched at his side. He no longer expects good news. Report, he says quietly. The intelligence officer hesitates before answering. Admiral, forward defensive lines are no longer holding in several sectors. American forces have moved beyond the beach in multiple areas. That should not be possible this quickly. Every calculation, every plan, every defensive layer was designed to stop them at the shoreline. But the shoreline is already behind them. Through the periscope, Shibasaki sees it for himself. American Marines are no longer clustered near the water. They're moving inland, carefully, steadily, supported at every step. Small units advance, pause, communicate, then move again. Behind them, more forces arrive. Not in chaos. In order. Artillery response? Shibasaki asks. Limited, Admiral, comes the reply. Many positions have been destroyed. Others cannot maintain fire due to constant counterattacks. Counterattacks. That word echoes in his mind, because it reveals something critical. The Americans are not just attacking, they are responding instantly to anything that threatens them. Japanese artillery fires. Within minutes, it is targeted. Japanese troops regroup. They are seen and struck before they can act. Every attempt to recover is interrupted. Every effort to fight back is answered before it can succeed. Shibasaki watches a section of the island where defenders attempt to reposition between bunkers. For a brief moment, they move undetected. Then, aircraft appear. Oh, fast, precise. The strike is immediate. The movement stops. Silence before it becomes a threat. He exhales slowly. They're watching everything, he murmurs. An officer nearby nods, his face pale. It appears so, Admiral. But it's more than observation. It's connection. That's what makes it so dangerous. Every American unit, on land, at sea, in the air, acts like part of the same organism. Information flows constantly. Nothing is isolated. And that changes everything. Communications update, the signals officer says, holding a headset tightly. We're intercepting more transmissions. Their coordination is increasing. Increasing? Shibasaki repeats. Yes, Admiral. As they gain ground, their response time improves. That shouldn't happen. In battle, expansion usually creates confusion. Lines stretch. Communication weakens. But here, the opposite is true. The system becomes stronger as it grows. Shibasaki steps back from the periscope for a moment. He thinks about everything he built here. The interlocking bunkers. The overlapping fields of fire. The precise artillery targeting. All designed to trap an enemy in predictable patterns. But this enemy doesn't follow patterns. It creates them. And then adapts them in real time. Admiral, the intelligence officer speaks again, more quietly now. We've received a message from another command. Shibasaki looks at him. From where? Saipan. The room stills slightly. Read it. The officer swallows before continuing. A veteran sergeant reports that under American bombardment, he and others were unable to move. He describes it as being frozen. Not from fear alone, but from the inability to act within the pace of their attacks. Silence follows. That kind of admission is rare. Especially from experienced soldiers. Shibasaki says nothing, but the meaning is clear. This is no longer just physical pressure. It's psychological. The speed. The timing. The constant coordination. It removes opportunities. And without opportunity, even the most determined soldier becomes ineffective. Another explosion hits nearby. The bunker trembles again. Damage report, someone shouts. Minor structural impact, still holding. For now. Shibasaki returns to the periscope. The battlefield has changed again. Smoke drifts across shattered positions. Burned-out bunkers mark where defenses once stood. American units continue moving forward, but now he notices something else. Bulldozers. They move slowly but steadily, clearing obstacles, pushing debris aside. And they are protected. Infantry surrounds them. Gunfire from ships supports them. Aircraft patrol overhead. Even engineering tasks are integrated into the system. Nothing is exposed. Nothing is left vulnerable. Admiral, the artillery commander says, his voice strained, we cannot establish stable firing lines. Every time we prepare, we are targeted. Shibasaki nods once. I understand. Because now he truly does. This is not a battle where strong points hold. This is a battle where strong points are identified and removed. One by one. Systematically. He watches as another Japanese position opens fire. For a brief second it seems effective. American troops take cover. Then, within moments, the response comes. Naval guns shift. Aircraft dive. Smoke deploys. The position disappears under coordinated fire. It's almost immediate. Almost automatic. As if the system corrects itself the moment something goes wrong. Casualty updates, the intelligence officer says, his voice lower than before. Shibasaki doesn't turn. Proceed. American casualties remain significant, but controlled. Estimated around 20% in engaged units. And ours? There's a pause. Then, forward positions, approaching total loss, Admiral. The words hang in the air. Total loss. Not retreat. Not fallback. Gone. Shibasaki closes his eyes briefly. Numbers no longer matter the way they used to. Because this isn't about how many men are fighting. It's about how they are fighting. And that difference is deciding everything. He opens his eyes and looks again. American forces continue advancing. Not rushing. Not slowing. Just continuing. A steady, unstoppable pressure. Admiral, the communications officer says almost in disbelief, they're establishing supply points already. Inland. Inland? Someone repeats. Yes. Ammunition, medical, command posts, all moving forward with the troops. That confirms it. The system doesn't just reach the battlefield. It rebuilds itself on it. Instantly. Which means there is no weak phase. No moment to strike when they are vulnerable. Because vulnerability is being removed, as it appears. Shibasaki steps away from the periscope again. For the first time he feels the full weight of what's happening. Not just here, but everywhere. If this level of coordination exists, then every defensive position across the Pacific is at risk. Every strategy based on delay, confusion, or fragmentation is outdated. Admiral, the signals officer says suddenly, holding out a headset. Incoming communication. High priority. From where? Iwo Jima. Shibasaki takes the headset slowly. A familiar voice comes through, steady but strained. Shibasaki, what we are witnessing cannot be explained by current doctrine. He recognizes the speaker immediately. General Kuribayashi. The force of their combined operations makes any landing possible, the voice continues. No position can be considered secure under this level of attack. Shibasaki listens in silence. Because he has already seen it. Already felt it. They are not fighting as separate forces, Kuribayashi says. They are fighting as one. The line goes quiet. Shibasaki lowers the headset. Around him, the bunker continues to shake. Reports continue to come in. The battle continues outside. But inside his mind, something has already shifted. For years he believed in preparation. In structure. In the strength of well-designed defense. Now, standing deep beneath an island that was supposed to be unbreakable, he understands the truth. This fortress was never designed to withstand this kind of war. And above him, the system keeps moving forward. Relentless. Unstoppable. Unfamiliar. In the final hours, it wasn't just a battle being lost, it was an entire way of thinking about war coming to an end. The bunker is no longer steady. Each impact above feels closer than the last. The walls still hold, but barely. The air is thick with dust and heat. Radios cut in and out. Voices are harder to understand now. Some are shouting, others are simply gone. Shibasaki stands near the periscope, but he doesn't look through it immediately. He already knows what he'll see. Still, he forces himself forward. Outside, Tarawa is almost unrecognizable. The carefully built defensive network, the bunkers, the trenches, the firing positions, has been reduced to broken shapes and scattered debris. Smoke drifts across the island in long, slow waves. Fires burn in multiple sectors. And through it all, the Americans continue moving. Not rushing. Not hesitating. Advancing. Final sector reports coming in, the intelligence officer says, his voice strained but controlled. Remaining positions are isolated. Communications are failing. Shibasaki nods slightly. Isolation. That word defines everything now. Japanese units are no longer connected. Each pocket of resistance fights alone, cut off from support, from information, from command. Meanwhile, the Americans remain connected. Every movement still supported. Every action still linked. That difference has decided the battle. Through the periscope, Shibasaki watches a final defensive position attempt to hold. A small group of soldiers fires from a damaged bunker, determined to resist as long as possible. For a brief moment they succeed. Then, the response arrives. Aircraft strike first. Naval gunfire follows. Infantry advances under cover. The position disappears. Not dramatically, not chaotically, but efficiently. As if it was simply removed. Shibasaki lowers the periscope slowly. No anger. No shock. Just understanding. Casualty report, he says. The intelligence officer hesitates again. Then answers. Forward positions, effectively lost, Admiral. Total losses in many sectors. And the Americans? Still advancing. Casualties present, but operations continue without interruption. Of course they do. Because the system does not stop. It adjusts. It absorbs loss. And it continues. Shibasaki walks across the bunker, his steps steady despite the shaking ground. Officers look at him, waiting for orders that he knows will not change the outcome. For the first time there is nothing left to adjust. No repositioning that will matter. No counterattack that will succeed. Because every option depends on coordination, and that has already collapsed. Prepare final transmission, he says. The communications officer moves quickly, setting up the equipment. The line connects with difficulty. Static fills the air. Signal ready, Admiral. Shibasaki takes a breath. Then speaks clearly. American coordination capabilities exceed all previous expectations. Defensive strategies based on current doctrine are no longer effective. Immediate review of all operations is recommended. He pauses. The bunker shakes again. Dust falls across the table. Then he continues. This is not a matter of numbers or equipment. It is a matter of integration. The word lingers in the air. Integration. He didn't fully understand it before. Now it's all he can see. The message is transmitted. The line goes silent. Shibasaki hands the receiver back without another word. Around him, the bunker continues to function, but only in the most basic sense. Reports still come in. Orders are still repeated. But the structure behind them is gone. And everyone feels it. A distant explosion sounds different from the others. Closer. He turns back toward the periscope one last time. Above ground, American forces are now moving through what remains of the defensive core. Engineers follow closely behind, clearing paths, establishing positions, building as they advance. Even at the end, the system is still building forward. Still expanding. Still connected. Admiral, an officer says quietly, they're approaching this sector. Shibasaki nods once. I know. There is no panic in his expression. Only clarity. For years, he believed that strength came from preparation, from discipline, from the will to fight. Those things are still here. His men have not failed in courage. They have not lacked determination. But none of it was enough. Because they were fighting as individuals, against something unified. He looks around the bunker, at the officers, the maps, the equipment that once represented control. Now it all feels distant. Another impact. Stronger. Closer. The structure trembles again. Admiral, we should evacuate deeper, someone begins. Shibasaki shakes his head. There is nowhere deeper to go. And that is the truth. Not just physically, but strategically. There is no deeper defense against something that reaches every level at once. The sound of battle above grows louder. Closer. Voices, different voices, begin to echo faintly through the structure. The end is no longer approaching. It's here. Shibasaki takes one final look through the periscope. American forces move across the island with the same steady precision he saw at the beginning. Nothing has changed in their method. That is what makes it so final. This was never a temporary advantage. It is a new kind of warfare. And it will not stop here. He steps back. The room is silent now despite the noise outside. Because everyone understands. Not just what is happening, but what it means. Moments later, the command bunker is overrun. And with it, the defense of Tarawa comes to an end. The silence that follows is heavier than the battle itself. Across the Pacific, reports spread quickly. Officers, analysts, and commanders study what happened at Tarawa, not just as a defeat but as a warning. Because the implications are impossible to ignore. Captured officers describe the same thing again and again. Not just firepower. Not just numbers. But coordination. A level of integration they had never prepared for. Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa later puts it simply during questioning. We were surprised by the scale of their coordination. Their ability to connect air, sea, and land forces was beyond our understanding. Beyond understanding. That phrase echoes across every report, because it explains everything, and changes everything. For soldiers who survived, the impact is even more personal. Sergeant Teo Yamuchi, a veteran of multiple battles, describes something difficult to explain. Not fear. Not exactly. But paralysis. The sense that there was no moment to act. No gap to exploit. No way to respond fast enough. We trained to fight soldiers, he says later. We did not train to fight a system. That distinction becomes the defining lesson of the Pacific War. And it forces change. Japanese strategy shifts after Tarawa. Beachfront defenses are no longer trusted. New fortifications go underground, designed to survive bombardment. But even those changes struggle against the same problem. Because the system adapts too. It learns. It evolves. And it continues. Commanders like General Kuribayashi begin to recognize a deeper truth, one that goes beyond tactics. The United States, he admits, is the last country we should fight. It's not just about resources or manpower. It's about coordination. A level of integration that turns separate forces into a single, unified machine. And once that exists, traditional warfare cannot compete in the same way. The impact doesn't end with World War II. The methods developed and proven during battles like Tarawa reshape military thinking for generations. Modern operations, from large-scale conflicts to joint international missions, are built on the same principle. Connection over isolation. Coordination over individual effort. Because Tarawa proved something clearly, courage alone is not enough. Discipline alone is not enough. Even strong defenses are not enough. If they are not connected, they will fail against something that is. And that is the legacy of those 76 hours. Not just a battle, but a turning point, where the nature of warfare changed and never went back.